We don't have any audio. There we go. Okay. I don't know if we heard any of that. Okay, so let's try this again. Welcome to the podcast. And also, go to DylanTalksTone right now. Do me a favor and check it out, because that's what we really do. We make pickups. And we're going to talk a lot about handmade stuff today. We're going to talk about CNC versus handmade stuff and why I think guitar players really get this wrong. About the benefits or this or that or expectations and price and that kind of stuff. So we're going to discuss that in a minute. You should be hearing me now. You should definitely be hearing me. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so you guys are just catching up. The other thing is, you can also go over there and you can join Patreon, which gets you 10% off everything we make at DylanTalksTone. So please go and do that. And we have some hangouts and stuff that we do. A lot of fun stuff there. And then also make sure you go over there at DylanTalksTone and join the Gear of the Month, Gear of the Week contest. I think this Thursday night, which is the last Thursday of the month, we're going to be giving away some Lizard Spit stuff because Chris over at Lizard Spit sponsored that this week. So yeah, cool. Well, let's jump straight into this conversation. So I've been thinking about this a bunch, kind of thinking about how AI and digital technology is affecting the guitar industry. And I mean that from the making side, okay? So when we think of, when we think of guitars, one of the tropes we hear all the time on the internet is that CNC machines make it to where you don't have to worry about anything anymore. And it makes it to where a $300 guitar is just as good as a $5,000 guitar and blah, 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 right? And then we also hear, why does Gibson quality control suck? Because it's not perfect and it's $3,500 and whatever, right? We hear those things constantly because the expectation is that with digital technology, CNC machines, I've been thinking about this too because I've been 3D printing some stuff. So, and artificial intelligence helps this a lot because it does a lot of the troubleshooting and adjusting as things are happening. When you were talking about this digital technology stuff. But here's the problem, is that basically, or it's not the problem, it's kind of neat that all this digital technology, CNC, AI, and all these various things, they make a really perfect guitar, or the possibility for a really perfect guitar. It's not always the work. They make it possible for it to be very cheap. Right. So we've always talked about that a lot, how a $300 to $500 guitar is amazing. And it never used to be like that. Handmade stuff is slower. It's messier. There's usually more people involved, which is higher costs. So the thing is more expensive when things are handmade. But here's where guitar players, I think, are really confused about this, because on one hand, you want handmade stuff because you want cool stuff. But on the other hand, people demand perfection. And those two things, they don't just go together. You can get perfection by hand, but perfection by computer is way cheaper, right? So in order to get perfection by hand, you got to spend a lot of money. And this is not to say that like I'm against technology. I love it. I think it's great. I'm in there 3D printing something right now. I love it. And we use that thing for our business. We use lasers in our business. We use lots of stuff, right? To make pickups and, the various things like that, all the modern tools and of course computers and everything. So my thing is though, I want personally as a person, this is just me, and you could disagree all you want. And I want to talk about this if you do disagree, but I really want handmade stuff. I like handmade stuff. Shopping on Amazon's cool, grabbing something real quick's neat, but I like handmade stuff. I like vintage stuff. I like old stuff that was handmade a long time ago. I like something with a story, right? Whether it's the person who made it or the thing has lived long enough to have its own story. I like that. I think that's really, really cool. But in 2026, most guitar players expect 100% consistency, identical results of every product, and they expect a product to be perfect when they get it. So you order it, you get it from Sweetwater, you get it from Guitar Center, you get it from Amazon, you show up, and it just needs to be what it is. It comes out of the box, and that's it. No variants, right? And the speed, you want it in 2 days, right? Like if I order something from Amazon and it says it's Prime, and then all of a sudden I get a thing and it's like it's not going to be here till Friday, I'm pissed. Like I want it in 2 days because I expect it in 2 days. So, you know, it's not that you want the wrong things. Like we want what we want, but I think we are confused about what's really important and how we get there. And I think, yeah, that's, you know, that is my opinion. Hand finished works for me. A guitar is just a solution to a math and physics problem. I dig that. Let's see. I only use my CNC machine to cut the truss rod slots. Okay, so here's an interesting thing too, is this has created a culture. We'll talk about this now. Has created a culture where guitar builders have to make excuses for using technology, right? Well, I use a CNC machine, but I only use it for X or Y. Because the expectation is once you buy a CNC machine from the consumer side, or once you start using AI for something, or once you start using anything computer controlled, that all of a sudden you can push a button and a guitar pops out the other side, and then you hit Amazon Prime and it shows up in 2 days, and it's going to be perfect and everything is going to be awesome, and it's going to be the best guitar you ever played, and it's going to be $350. That is just false. It's just false. It's just not going to happen. The good parts of that is that quote unquote perfection is scalable because you can make stuff and you can make a lot of it. But here's the problem. This is where it starts to fall apart for me. Where it starts to fall apart for me is a machine. It's garbage in, garbage out. A machine only converts data into motion, right? So you put data in the machine, and if you tell the machine to go from here to here, that's what it does, right? If you tell it to go from here to here, it's going to go from there to there, as long as it's a good one. If you tell it to go from here to here, it'll go from there to there. If you don't know how to do that, then your results are not going to be consistent. So it only is a machine. It doesn't know when something feels right. It doesn't know when something has, this is a stupid word, I think, but I think it applies for what we're doing here. But if something has a particular vibe, right? Machines don't design things. Well, I suppose AI can. That's probably becoming a reality based on the averages. Here's the problem with AI, though. AI is like a lot of these large language models are basically just a bunch of data, all the data on the internet, and then they just take the average out of it. So if you use AI to design something, it's going to be the most mediocre thing ever because it's not going to be cool, right? It doesn't do cool. It just does average because it's just taking all of a conglomeration of all this knowledge, and it's just saying all this data and saying, okay, here's a thing. So if you want to, let's say you wanted to design a pocket knife, it's going to be like pocket knife shaped thing. It's sharp here and it folds up. That's, is there going to be any style to it? Is there going to be a soul to it, like feel to it? How is it going to sound when you open it? Like all that stuff is not going to be possible or is not going to be part of it, right? It's just going to be a thing that cuts a zip tie. Same thing with the guitar stuff, right? When we think about, and this does happen, we think about a lot of these really inexpensive import guitars that are made on CNC machines, and you can get them for $300, and they purport to be, a lot of the consumers purport them to be just as good as whatever else. They're kind of just, they're just guitar-shaped thing, functions as guitar, right? And the reason people are so rabid about them is because they've built a culture around owning the thing, but it's not necessarily because that guitar is actually awesome at anything, right? It's basically like we took this mediocre thing, we created a community, and now we have friends that we can talk about this mediocre thing with. And that's really the fun part. To be honest with you, that's really the fun part. And that's cool. That's great. Because if you have a Harley Benton friend and you can talk about Harley Bentons, now you got a friend. You didn't have that before. So that's awesome, right? But it's not because the thing is awesome. Not always. It can be, but not always. So here's the problem with all this is that our expectations and the costs and everything have flipped. Okay. So it used to be in the old days that if you bought something handmade, it was premium. Like it was, if you bought anything, it was like, old school, I don't even want to call them luthiers because luthiers build lutes, but, old school guitar builders, the guy in your town, right? And he worked out of the shed behind his house. And if you knew the guy is the only way you could get a guitar from him, and you'd go over there and you'd talk to him, it would probably look like some kind of stained barn door when it was done. All those guitars from that era all looked the same. It's like, it just looks like brown wood. And you're like, hey, I had this custom made by Frank, at the end of the gravel road, but I went over there and we like designed it. And like, that was the thing. Like it was a handmade thing. And even if it just looked like a piece of wood with some stain or tung oil, because that's what everybody uses, it was still cool because, it was bespoke to you, right? Like it was a custom guitar for you. There was a lot of time. There was a lot of love. There was a lot of effort put into that, right? And in those days, the photocopy guitar was kind of cheap crap, right? Like we talked about this last Thursday on the podcast or on the live stream, like talking about like my first guitar was like this cardboard feeling Stella 3/4 acoustic, like, really long time ago, like maybe early 80s. And it wasn't very good. You know what I mean? It just kind of was but a beginner guitar now, those things have flipped, right? So labor costs, time, attention, experience, all those things that go into a custom guitar have now realigned. Everything's sort of realigned. So now it's cheaper to get a good guitar by a computer, like a perfect guitar by a computer, than it is to get an imperfect guitar by a person. It's cheaper to get a perfect guitar by a computer, done by a computer, than it is to get a guitar with some imperfections in it from a person. And that changes everything because as guitar players, we want mojo, we want character, we want feel, right? We talk about feel all the time because as much as people don't want to admit this, the comments are loaded all the time with people who are like, well, how I choose a guitar is how it feels. Okay, well, that's a feeling, right? That's a feeling. That's not a piece of data. That's not a 0 or a 1. That's a feeling. This is how I feel. The guitar makes me feel this way. So this is and it could be how it feels, how the fretboard feels, right? And you can buy off of a spec sheet to a point, but there's nothing like feeling it, right? So it's a human interaction that you have to have with this piece of wood, which is weird, but it's true. You know what I'm talking about. But here's the problem. Modern folks want all that vibe and feel and coolness and mojo because that's what inspires us. But we also expect it to be perfect. We expect it to be identical every time. We expect it to have 0 cosmetic blemishes. We expect to get it super fast, and we want it as cheap as possible. None of that stuff adds up. You cannot demand human character with machine level consistency at the same time. You can't. So what do you want as a guitar player? I'm going to ask you, What do you want? Do you want something made by a person, or do you want something made by a machine when it comes to your instrument? I'm curious to know what you think about that. I'll check your comments here in a minute. We'll let a few of them pile up. Because we could go with the perfect machined guitar, right? Or we could look at something like Gibson, for example. Okay. So everybody's like, well, they have CNC machines now, so they should be perfect. And they should cost $1,500, not $3,500. Well, your expectations are just off. You're just wrong. For a lot of reasons. But when you look at even the modern big guitar companies, most of the work they do is still done with hands. It's still done with people. However, what that means is and they choose to do it that way. I've heard that, well, why doesn't Gibson just do it the same way they do it over in China? Because then everything will be like, they'll feel like Epiphones. Epiphones feel like crap to me. Because then it wouldn't be a Gibson anymore. It wouldn't be some people in a factory making stuff the way they've made it. It would lose that. It would lose that. Right? So there's this thing where you have to accept. When I see, okay, I can look at a guitar and I can tell what was done by hand. And if I can tell it was done by hand, as long as it's not done poorly, I'm okay with that. I've gotten Gibsons with where I could see like a file mark on the edge of a binding, like right up at the neck. And I'm like, that's actually kind of cool, right? Somebody did that. I think that's neat. It wasn't bad. It doesn't hurt anything. It's not cutting anything. It's not rough. It doesn't feel weird. You just see that a person did a thing right there, right? And I really, really like that. I've got this pocket knife in my pocket right now, where I can tell that it was done on a CNC machine, but I can also tell that where the fitment was done, by hand. And you can see where the final grind and the final sharpening isn't 100% perfect. Like I can see a little smile right here at the back by the choil. I think it's really neat. It's okay. And it's part of the character of the thing. And to me, like a Gibson guitar, for example, has those things, but it's not bad. They're not bad. So, if there's a real problem, that's different. Just return the guitar and get another one. But we're always going to have human things about human-made instruments. And the people, if it's a reputable company, will take responsibility for that and say, yeah, I did that. I like that. The reason I did that. And they have the power to say, this isn't right. I want to fix it. They can redesign things. They can do things like that. Where all of these copy guitars, for example, that come from China and Indonesia, they come out of this big corporate machine that is basically just made to put out cheap guitars for the purpose of putting out cheap guitars, right? So it's just an interesting, it's a different way to do it. And I understand the goal because we need inexpensive stuff. I just think we need inexpensive stuff for the folks that need inexpensive stuff. But I think the expectations of human beings wanting amazing stuff for really cheap can be a little off. Oh, hang on. Let's see. Why let the computers have all the fun? I agree. I've been a small business owner in the U.S. for 12 years. People in this country hate paying for labor, but they sure like getting paid. You know what I always ask people? What do you do for a living? Well, I do whatever. Would you do it for free for the rest of the afternoon? Just because somebody asked you? Or, a whole day? If it takes me however long it takes me to do something, would you mind working for free Thursday? No, you don't want to. Well, I don't either. I guess I don't understand why we don't have the best of both worlds. Let the computer solve the major structural work, and then the techs and the artists finish the instrument, the best of both worlds. And that's really what Gibson is. That's what PRS is. That's what Fender is. And the interesting, people want to say, well, PRS can get it almost perfect. Gibson gets it less so, and Fender probably less than Gibson, in my opinion. I think Gibson has better quality than Fender does. But what I think that is, and I don't know that people will agree with me on this, but I know people that work at all three of those companies, and I've had conversations with them. I've got friends that have worked at Fender, for example, for many, many years. And my feeling on it is it's not that people don't care one way or the other. So like, it's not that Fender has employees that don't care or Gibson has employees that don't care and everybody at PRS has somebody that cares, because they're all doing the same thing largely, like Matthew Sanders mentioned. They are CNCing the bodies and necks, and then they're doing everything else by hand, basically. That's really what's happening, right? So they're all doing pretty much the same thing. But the ethos of each company is different and how the instruments are made. And that is passed down through the generations. From 1950s down to now, Fender does it a certain way. How they teach their people to sand, how they teach their people to do finishing. It's their method, right? If you came over here and I taught you how to make a pickup, and then you went over to Lawler and you sat there and he taught you how to make a pickup, you might say, well, Dylan's quality is not as good or is better than this other company. Like, you might look and say there's a difference in quality. It's not quality. It's approach to the product. It's the mind of how and the result that you get. It's methods, right? It's everything. How you sweep your kitchen floor is different than how I sweep my kitchen floor. What direction you go when you cut your grass, it might be different than how I do it, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that the quality is bad. It's just different. So the way Gibson, like for example, you might really like the way Fender finishes a bound neck, because we used the bound neck example earlier. Well, Gibson does it different. Okay, they have a completely different way of doing it. And that's based on the fact that they do the binding over the frets, and then that changes how they have to sand it and the tooling that they use and everything. Everything's different. And then you see that and you're like, I don't like that. That's bad quality. No, it ain't. It's the way it's done versus this is the way it's done. And you just happen to like that method better. And the result that they get from that method's different than this one. Right? That's all it is. It's not a quality thing as much as it is a method thing. Could it be that handmade and labor are not appreciated by people who have never built anything? That's definitely a thing. What I would encourage you to do, because I think we all progress in this. I don't think this is a binary thing. I think, either you appreciate nice stuff or CNC guitars, or you appreciate handmade stuff, or you appreciate computer made stuff, right? I don't think it has to stay that way. I think that I will tell you right now. Well, this is another excellent example. This pocket knife. I avoided buying this brand for the longest time because it's kind of expensive. It was really expensive. And I was like, it just doesn't seem that special. And then I watched a couple of YouTube videos, for what it costs and stuff. And then I watched a couple of YouTube videos and the origin of the company and learned about, Jonathan McNeese and like a whole bunch of different things. I thought it was really neat. And I was like, now I know the story. Now I get it. It's still too expensive. I'm not going to buy it. And then I got around to wanting to buy it. So maybe you as a person who, if you are the person who is like, I just don't see it, man. An inexpensive guitar is good enough for me. It doesn't, which is totally fine. You should play whatever you want to play. I would recommend, just for funsies, Google some videos about how some stuff is made, like real handmade stuff. I had no idea. I watched a Larry Chen video the other night about how Canon lenses are made. Okay. The lens that I use, not this one, but the lens I use every day on my camera is $3,000. Okay. And I hold this thing in my hand and I'm like, if you're into photography, you know that the lens is the center of the world. Like, you could spend $500 on a camera body, but if you spend a $3,000 lens, it's still going to look amazing, right? Like, that's where the magic is. So that I knew that, and that's what I did, and it's my job, and so I invested that. But still, it pained me. Like, holy crap, this thing is expensive. Until I watched this video the other day, and I'm watching how they make them. They've got certain lenses, they can only make like 5 of them a day. They take so long because they've got these old Japanese guys with these hand sanders polishing glass. Like, it's all done by hand at Canon. Something that you can buy at Best Buy. And they're doing it by hand. I'm like, okay, never mind. I'm not going to argue about how much it costs anymore. That is amazing, right? So if you can do that with guitar stuff, and you may not. You might watch a video and be like, yeah, I don't care. That's totally fine. But I would recommend that you do it because it really can change your perspective. And I don't mean I don't want to change your mind about stuff, but further appreciating art is pretty cool if you're willing to do it. And recognizing the art and the craft that goes into things is really, really neat. Despite how technology and handwork mesh, right? I think that's really, really neat, man. I'm not sure what the difference is if a body is hogged out by a person or a router and a template or a CNC machine. Absolutely zero difference. Actually, so that's not totally true. When you use a CNC machine, it opens you up to more manufacturing process. You can do things and make shapes and do stuff that you can't do like with a router and a template, for example. So there are things that you can do. Let's see. Hang on. I'm going back and I'm trying to catch up on some comments. Is that a problem with society today? We just settle for just good. Maybe we do settle for just good. But I think that has to do with the fact that a lot of stuff is really available for cheap, which is totally cool. CNC is not a panacea. Perfection is not achievable. No machinist worth his salt believes in perfection. They believe in tolerance. Very good. Tight or otherwise. I 100% agree. I 100% agree. I got this 3D printer, and so I'm learning some 3D modeling stuff. And it's the other thing too, is a lot of people think, okay, you're just going to stick something in. So it's pretty neat. I got a Bamboo Labs, so you can like find a file for something and like hit a button, and a couple hours later it pops out, right? Like, it's pretty neat. But if you want to design something yourself, that's a whole different ball of wax. That's hours and hours. It took me the other day like an hour and a half of cussing to myself. Okay, maybe not totally to myself. How to make a very simple box in a 3D modeling program because I didn't understand the software, and I had to watch a bunch of videos, and it took me hours and hours and hours and hours and hours to understand kind of the general layout of the software, and I just wasn't getting it. And then I finally got it, and I started to realize, I'm like, no, this takes actual skill. This is a real thing. I mean, this is a real job. Like, somebody has to sit in a room for 40, 50 hours a week at a guitar company to do all this stuff. Like, it's not just a play button, Yeah, it's really interesting to me. So then CNC is better. I would say that it depends. I would say it depends it depends. Okay. So let's talk about what we do here. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today on this podcast was what got me thinking about this was what we do here. So we have manual winders. Obviously, we wind by hand. And then we also have a CNC winder. We have some really old-fashioned tools to make like bobbins and like press bobbins and, stuff like that. And then we have some really modern stuff because we have lasers and stuff, and then we use a 3D printer to make some bobbins. Like, so we go from totally by hand and sitting there with an X-Acto knife to super fancy 21st century stuff, right? And then I was talking to, I'll just tell you who I was talking to. I was talking to Abby Ibarra's daughter. She called me the other night. We were talking to her. We've been friends for quite a while, and she's like, my mom got a Mojo Tone winder and she hates it because she doesn't know how to push the buttons to make it do what she wants it to do. And I'm like, I agree. That thing sucks. So we talked about helping Abby get set up with a Mojo Tone winder. And she decided she's not going to use it. She's going to go back to her old-fashioned one. But but we were talking about this, about how important it is. I think as technology continues to come into our lives more and more, AI and CNC and all that kind of stuff, I think there's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be a division of two camps. There's probably going to be crossovers. I'm definitely a crossover person where there's going to be, I think there's going to be three camps of people. There's going to be the person who's like Abby, I don't want buttons. She's like, I don't want to deal with it. I just want to turn it on, type in how many winds I need and hand wind. I don't want to mess around, right? And I'm on the other side of it going, okay, I can see the value in having a CNC winder sometimes, but I also don't want to lose the handmade aspect to what we do. And then there's going to be the other people on the other side who are just like all in, ahead of the bell curve, CNC everything. I don't care. Amazon Prime, show up at my house, cheapy pickups from somewhere in Korea, come out of a machine, like spits them out, and all of a sudden it's Amazon box to your door. So there's the Amazon box to your door people. There's Abby on the other side who doesn't even want a button to go up and down and up and down. She just wants to do it. And then there's me in the middle where I'm kind of like, I want a little of both because I want to appreciate it all. But never, ever, ever lose the fact that we make things by hand. I think, and I hope that there will be a crowd of people. Let me know in the comments what camp you're in. I never want anything digital. I'm Amazon guy all the way, Harley Benton all the way. Never, ever want to spend $3,000 for a guitar that a human hand touches. I just want cheap. Or in the middle where you're like, I don't know, I kind of want a bit of both worlds, right? Like I like using ChatGPT to find a recipe, but I still want to know how to use a screwdriver. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where I'm at. And so thinking about that, I hope that there will be a large number of people who never want to lose the feeling of handmade stuff. We changed our packaging this week because I was like, I want to update our packaging. We want to put a more human touch on it. We want to make it feel handmade, even though we're always tightening things and making things better. I never want it to look like it came out of a machine. I want people to know that me and Brianna made everything that came out of that room. I just really care about that because I love it, and I love it in other things, right? I mean, if you got to use a MacBook, you got to use a MacBook, right? But even a pen, like I want a hand, this is a tactile turn. I want to know that some guy in Texas made this pen. I think that's really cool. And of course he used a lathe to do it, but it doesn't matter. And I think about it too, because we could very easily, people have asked me this, well, why don't you come out with a cheaper line of pickups, for example? Your stuff's pretty expensive, which it is, because it's handmade, because everything takes time, because, somebody asked me the other day, why is the clear P90 with the clear top like $30 more than the regular one? I'm like, because there is just as much assembly before we wind that pickup as there is after we wind that pickup. It literally takes the time to make it up by 30%. Like, it's very complicated to make that thing. That's why it has to be more expensive. If you appreciate that and you think it's cool, you're going to buy it anyway. If you're like, no pickup is worth, whatever it is, $153. I'm just going to buy one off of Amazon. Okay, I get it. But I just really hope that there's going to always be the people who really, really, really respect that, because there's always going to be this trade-off of handmade stuff takes longer, right? Like, we try to ship everything within 2 weeks. It's always going to be more expensive because it takes us longer to do it. And, we poke ourselves and burn ourselves with soldering irons and, stuff like that. There's always going to be variances. I engrave my name on every pickup by hand, so it's not always going to look the same. But it's also more intentional. Every little thing we do is for a reason, right? The length of the wires, the way we solder everything, like how we do things is really, really intentional. And to me, that makes the thing more meaningful. And I hope that when you put it in your guitar, it makes it more meaningful to you. I was talking to Aurora about this the other night, Ibarra, and we were talking about wanting to or not wanting to sign our names on our pickups because people might feel like that's sort of like an ego thing. And I was like, it depends on you as a person. Are you doing it because of ego? I'm not. I want people to know that it was made by hand. Even if you never take the thing out of the guitar, it's just a neat feeling, right? I have a pistol that it's a Nighthawk, and underneath one of the one of the grips, I've never even taken the grip off, but I just know it's under there, is a stamp by the guy that built the gun, right? He's just one gunsmith, built the whole gun by hand. And I think that's really, really cool, right? I've never even taken it off, but just knowing it's there and knowing that one guy made it, that's pretty neat. And that is why I bought it, right? Could I have gotten one that felt similar for cheaper? Definitely. It doesn't matter. It's just, that's really, really cool. And so I really want people to appreciate those things. If you want something totally perfect, if you want something really fast, buy it on Amazon. But if you want to connect with your hobby and really appreciate the finer things and the cooler things about this, I always think about that because I've been thinking about this a lot, because the approach to a lot of companies and the approach from the viewpoint of a lot of consumers is, I want the best thing for cheapest. Don't make fun of me if I play something cheap. Your expensive guitar sucks because it should be perfect for $3,500. And there begins this rift between people, right? You're fighting about it. We're arguing about it, which I think is kind of dumb. So just enjoy where you are, but also understand that it's not tangible. Like, a lot of this stuff's not tangible. And over time, I hope that more people, I honestly, this, not to get too existential here, but I really hope, for the sake of humanity, that most people will still have some part of them that's like, I want to use a real pen. I want a pencil sharpener on the end of my desk. I want an old-fashioned KitchenAid instead of some, I don't know, there's probably going to be some computery thing you're going to have in your kitchen. Just hit a button and a loaf of bread comes out. Well, they have bread machines, but you know what I'm talking about. Something super automated. No, man, I want to, make some dough. I want to play guitar. I want to tune. I want to plug stuff in. It's like why a lot of people still have pedal boards versus having a, Kemper or something. Cause it's like, no, I want to turn knobs. Like, I want to do stuff. So I really hope that that continues. I hope that continues to grow, or not grow, but I hope it doesn't go away. And I hope, even though technology continues to grow, that this also continues to grow, that people still continue to appreciate those kinds of things. Let's see. Let's go through some of these comments real quick. I've built guitars with CNC and with a router. They came out pretty much the same. One wasn't better than the other. Yeah, I mean, and it here's the other thing too, is again, it depends on the operator. It depends on the complexity of your design. It depends on the execution. It depends on a lot of things. So yeah, absolutely. We all want to play guitar. Yeah, no, I think we're on board. Yeah. We solved nothing and we're happy about it. This is wonderful. We compare cheap guitars to handmade expensive guitars. That's very good in my opinion. I don't compare them. I don't think there's any reason to compare them. That's the other thing. I think people need to stop doing that. Actually, what I really feel is I think that everybody should allow each product to stand on its own. Never compare anything. The way guitar players compare stuff. Now, you have to compare stuff sometimes, right? Is this heavier? Is that, right? Is this heavier? Is that lighter? Oh, that guitar's too heavy. I don't want that because I like light stuff. I want a fat neck, thin neck, like that kind of stuff. But when it really comes to quality and value for money, that's to me, I think that's a dumb argument. I really do. Because if you're a person who is trying to get the most value for money out of a thing, then you're missing the point of playing guitar. So, and people are going to say, yeah, but if I can't afford something, I want to make sure that I get value for money. I understand what you're saying. I get that. But don't take that too far. Buy what you like. Set a budget and buy what you like within that budget. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it after that. If you have $500, $300, whatever it is, I like the purple one. And of course, narrow it down. You can get on the website and be like, okay, this one's got humbuckers and I want humbuckers and I want a skinny neck. And, I want no fake Floyd Rose. I want just two humbuckers and a 3-way switch. That's what I want. Okay, well, there's a purple one. There's a red one. This one's from this company in Indonesia. This one's from this company in China for $300. That's probably what you're going to get. And yeah, there it is. Pick your favorite color and rock on. And when you get it, look it over. And if it sucks, make a decision. Send it back. Or do some mods and really make it your own. But I think comparing, the Sire to the Harley Benton and the Firefly to the whatever, I think that's just dumb. I think it's all dumb. And honestly, even at the $2,500, the $3,000 range, I still think it's dumb. I think all of it is, the people that, here's what I'm going to say, is you will be a much cooler person, much cooler guy or gal. You'll be a lot funner at parties. You will make more friends. You will play better music. You will explore more things and you will learn more things and you will enjoy more things if you are not the Consumer Reports guy about guitars. Well, how many little red circles does it have compared to this other one? No, don't do that. Buy the one you like and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Me or anybody else, just buy the one you like. But I hope that as you go through your guitar playing journey, that you learn to or don't stop appreciating stuff that's made by hand, whether it's by me or anybody else, because it's really cool when a human being does a thing for another human being. Even if it's for money, it's okay. I think that's really, really neat. A lot of people ask me why I don't own, I don't have a bunch of Asian guitars, why I have no Chinese knives over there. I have no Chinese fountain pens. I'm trying to think of all my hobbies, I have nothing like that. And it's not because I'm think that a certain country's better than another one at, whatever. Because there's lots of countries that are better at doing various things, right? Like go buy a Ducati in Italy and buy a Harley Davidson in the United States, right? It's two different things. So I think that's really cool. But the reason I buy what I buy is because I can tell you a story about each one of those things. If I was to go buy a Civivi pocket knife or a Harley Benton, there would be no story to that. I clicked a button and it showed up at my house. There's no story about who made it, how it got here, what the journey was, the inspiration to it. It was just trying to be something else. And then it showed up at my house and I cut a zip tie, or I played, I don't know, an Everclear song, like whatever, you know what I mean? And I would rather have something with more of a story than that. That's just me personally. So I hope everybody can do something to find that in what they do. All right, man. This has been fun, you guys. I hope you have a great afternoon, and we will probably see you tomorrow.